Good morning, Friday the 29th of November. So at the end of another working week, so another weekly update for you. I have recorded this once already, but I was out on the golf course and it was so windy and blustery coming through you can barely hear. So I've come back to the office to record, so it's a little bit more, a little clearer and easier to understand. I just want to start off by saying we've up to over 50 subscribers on our YouTube channel now, so thank you for all the support on that. It's fantastic, and we're getting a lot of feedback of it's a great feature and really explains things well. And also something else that incurs means that we always put chapters. I always put chapters in here so that if you want to skip to any subjects or want to watch something back but only wanted to watch a certain aspect of it, we put the times down in this description. I believe it's because we're up to 50 subscribers, but now that those chapters appear down the bottom of the screen as well, so you can just click and see where the gaps are in those chapters. So I'm excited about it. I think it's great. So hopefully that's beneficial. Hopefully that's beneficial to you. So when we came in this week, we were just off the back of the weekend storms. There was some positives and some negatives to that. I discussed last week how it was quite a strange leaf falling season this year. Certainly one that I haven't seen in my time that I've been involved with the golf club, where we've had very calm conditions. So all the leaves have just fallen underneath the trees, and it's made the site a little bit messier than it perhaps usually is, where we're obviously quite open, exposed, and quite often the wind whips through and take those leaves away. So that's what happened over this weekend. So all those leaves have sort of pretty much were out from under the trees. And then they've blown their way to the edges of the golf course, or in quite a few of the bunkers as well. So they've got sort of trapped in there. So and on that subject, I suppose that's the negatives of the storm. It was a very heavy one with over 60 mil of rain, which is an awful lot of rain in one weekend, and some of the bunkers were washed out and full of leaves as well. So, and with more rain forecasts which came in on Tuesday night. So some good, some bad of that storm, but and then we were also down to three members of staff at some points this week, where our apprentice has now left us, and we'll look to replace him in the new year. And we had some staff sickness this early this week, so we're a bit low on the ground with staff there. So Friday, our setup today has been we fully wet the bunkers. We got the bunkers back into play after we waited for that rain to come down on Tuesday, because we didn't want to. We didn't have the staff and didn't want to go and replace those bunkers. It was there was quite a lot of rain forecast. It was over 10 mil rain forecast, and that's on the cusp of whether we get washdowns again or not. So we only wanted to fix those bunkers once. So we sort of had to put up with those bunkers early in the week, and then we got them all blown out and tidied out, and all the washdowns fixed on Thursday in the end, because we had quite a miserable drizzly day all day on Wednesday as well. So that's when they were back in play, and then we gave them another rake on Friday to get them back, some sand levels done, played around with as well. So they were back to normal operation there. Also, we've rolled greens this morning, and then a couple of the boys have been out doing some more attention to detail jobs, so trimming up all the tee plates, fairway plates, and the green sprinklers. The reason we haven't got a huge amount of cutting going on this morning is because we did it on the Thursday afternoon, which you may have seen from tee times and things like that, where we block out tee times on Thursday afternoons when we have frosty weather. So we came in Thursday, it was frosty. We were worried, kept looking at the temperatures for Friday, and we were worried that we may get another frost. So that's why we keep those spots reserved. So if we were to come in on Friday and it's frosty, then we can't really do a setup. And then Friday afternoons, Saturday afternoons, the golf course isn't at a great standard for the weekend really. So the best thing we can do is when it's thawed out on a Thursday afternoon is to get in there, and that's why we have that 1 hour maintenance gap for us to sit in there and produce those a golf course set up ready for the weekend. I have had discussions with other HODs and things like that, and we have sort of agreed that if the weather forecast looks like there's going to be no chance of frost, we will delete those tee times on a Tuesday. So there's more than 24 hours for people to get in and book those tee times, and if there's a chance for frost, then we'll keep them in there, but may delete them on a Thursday morning if we think no, Friday's going to be okay. So that's a little bit of an explanation as to what we do there, and hopefully that's understood, and you can understand that benefits the golf course. So outside the Friday, Thursday afternoon setups and getting the bunkers back in play, we're sort of an as and when policy with frequency of cut now. We sort of just monitor things. We quite often find that once a week is enough to get across the tees or the green surrounds or things like that. Green surrounds are a great example of where you can actually do more harm than good at times, because just running those heavy mowers over at times will cause some wear and tear, and can create areas to become muddy. So it's sometimes a case of leaving some of the worn and torn areas and just focusing on the greener areas, because we'd like to keep on top of those and keep a nice sharp clean tight cut. So yeah, as I said, that's as and when. We've been out with the hand mowers this week. We did that on Tuesday morning. Just felt like coming out of that rain. We're trying to be really gentle on the perimeters this time of year. We're under a little bit of pressure with staff levels and not having an apprentice, so we may struggle to hand mow twice a week as we would like to when we're fully staffed. But what we will do is if we have to use the triples, we'll use the triples but not do a perimeter, and then we'll use a hand mower once a week or maybe twice a week, just to go and do the perimeters of the greens, because you do notice as we get into this time of year, the triples with the turning on the edges and things like that can cause a little bit of wear. So I like the hand mowers going out there. To do the perimeters, they will create nice shapes on the greens and get a bit of feel back into it, and is a lot neater on those edges, and causes far less wear and tear. So that was good to get out with those. And by the end of the weekend, the roller would have got across the greens 4 times this week as well. So that becomes a really important tool for us, with the grass sort of being much more dormant than it is most of the year. You're not achieving a huge amount by cutting and not getting a huge amount of performance. So the roller gives you more performance with the firm and true surfaces. So that's why we try to keep the frequency of the rolling up quite a lot in the winter to carry on producing good greens. So that's what we've been up to this week in terms of the cutting and doing the course setups, and we'll go on to talk about some of the other things that we've been up to this week. Wanted to talk drainage this week, as a few weeks ago we had the Air 2 G2 in to start targeting some areas where water was starting to hold and stand. So short game area, left of 1, back right of 3. The storm that came in last weekend brought in well over 60 mils worth of rain. So that's the first time that these areas have sort of really been put to the test since the Air 2 G2 was used on these surfaces. So this is the short game area on Monday morning. You can see there's a large puddle there where it holds. I'll come back to that shortly. But I'm just approaching the area we had real trouble with, a real wet spot on the chipping green, and it's squelchy underfoot, ever so slightly there. But I will massively take that compared to how it was previously to the Air 2 G2. Previously, that area, that puddle would have sat on that chipping green area for almost a week, and took a long time to drain. As I talked about before, the chalk has great drainage properties, but when you start moving it around and then recompacting it with a 13-ton digger, sometimes that can lose those properties and be over compacted. So we got the Air 2 G2 in to its prongs go into the profile, blast compressed air in, and we were hoping that would sort of disrupt some of that chalk and blast some air through there, so allow water to pass through the profile and get gone through the chalk. And yeah, we're really, really pleased with how well that's come through. And then we were able to open, after we'd done a course setup, we got down to short game area and gave it all a cut to neaten it all up, and then it was open again by Monday afternoon. So we're delighted with how that worked down there. And going back to the puddle that we saw at the start, yeah, it's time to put a drain in there with a cap on. We have put sort of a soakaway in there. The idea was trying to put a soakaway in there and keep it grass, so we can. It's quite a nice little bowl to chip out of. But yeah, that's it's not working quite as well as we had hoped. So we'll add it to the list of jobs to do, and we'll get a pipe put down in there with a cap on, and so that drains away nicely rather than having the puddle that's there at present. So this is a photo of the first green the last time we had this volume of rain. So you can see it's a real problem and something that needs addressing. How we dealt with it last winter was to go out with a VertiDrain machine, which is a 12 mil time, which goes down 300 mil, and that puts lots of holes in the green and gives the water somewhere to travel and percolate through the soil, so to avoid those puddles. So to go one step further than that, what we did was what we sort of call a drill and fill technique. So this has to be done in the middle of summer, which is why we had a couple of temporary greens on a day or two, whereby we put the biggest VertiDrain tine we have, and then try to fill it with sand. Because if you just VertiDrain, eventually over time those holes will sort of close back up again. So to do this drill and fill process, you fill the holes with sand and they sort of stay open. So yeah, we got across, VertiDrain these, got all the sand in, and we did this twice. We did this once in June, July time, and then we did it all also in September as part of our renovations. So yeah, that's a really, really, really good thing to do. I'm annoyed with myself that we didn't take a photo of the first on Monday, but there was a couple of small puddles, but we went out and rolled those puddles out on Monday, pushed some of the water around, and it was gone. It was gone by the time golf had teed off, which was absolutely fantastic. We're delighted with that. Third was a little bit more tricky. This photo is the puddle 24 hours after. It was a bit, moving the water around on here was a bit tougher. But it's far improved compared to what we were. So what we're trying to achieve with these areas where we're experiencing holding water is to get rid of that water using techniques which cause minimal disruption to golf. So ultimately, if we're still experiencing a lot of standing water on these greens after we've done all these techniques, then we'll have to revert to a pipe drainage system but that will entail removing the turf, removing material, and installing a pipe, backfilling all that with the necessary drainage properties, and then putting the turf back down. That will of course mean that we will have temporary greens as we install the drainage, and whilst that turf recovers. So that causes a fair bit of disruption to golf. So if we can perform these techniques and get the water moving sort of naturally through the profile, then it's a win-win for everyone. So it doesn't affect golf so much, and we're getting rid of the water, which will be fantastic. One thing we are looking into is the potential of purchasing a tractor auger machine, which will help us easily install some soakaways. So we can install soakaways in a couple of different ways. We can either remove the material, bore out the material, and then backfill that with shingle and sand to create a sort of a drainage soakaway, or we could put a pipe in there and then put a drainage cap on the top of that so it stays open. So yeah, that's something we're looking into as a club at the moment, and that's my sort of recommendation, to really, really finish off what we're doing. I think we've done a really, really good job at getting the water away and moving through the profile, but the worst areas where we are just experiencing a couple of small puddles, then it would be great to get some sort of soakaway in there, and again that would be fairly minimal disruption, and that would really finish that off and get the water away. Following last weekend's storm, we came in on Monday to find a number of trees down in between 3 and 5. All these trees that fell down were dead, and yeah, had fallen over in the wind. So we got in there and tidied all those up to get that back to normal. Something we identified while we were there was still a number of dead trees that were stood up. We sort of identified those and made the decision that they just pose a risk, which they're dead. They're not going to come back to life. They're gone, and they're just going to fall over in high winds or a storm. And if golfers are in between in that area, then it causes quite a health and safety risk. So we decided to take a number of those down whilst we were in tidying the ones up that had fallen down too. So that's the reason for. The reason why there's quite a few taken out of there. So yeah, as I said, all of them were dead. So any that were on the floor we tidied up, and any that were still stood up but dead we removed to avoid any accident that may happen in the future. A quick update on the 17th lower tee that we've been working on recently. We haven't had a huge amount of hours to put into this week due to, as previously mentioned, staff levels and clearing up behind the storm. But when we have had time, we've continued on. We've found that this tee sort of slopes from back to front, downhill from the back, if you like. And so we've needed to top that front up. We feel it's quite important to get that a nice level, even playing surface, teeing surface, as it's such a short par 3. So I also mentioned last week that we were clearing out what we call our 13th dump to create more room up there. Whilst doing that, we found some really, really good quality root zone topsoil type things. So yeah, it's fantastic for us to be able to utilize some of that as material that we can keep on site and reuse, and that saves on cost of bringing in expensive external topsoil. So yeah, that's great. So we've used that to top up the front of that tee. We've then come down back to the shed with the digger and started taking our imported 60-40 root zone divot mix up there, which is what we use to level off those tees. We just put that in it, install that at 50 mil, which is the same thickness as the board, which works. It's a great technique which we found works well with the tees that we've built so far. So yeah, we've been transporting some of that up there and spreading that around and starting to compact that, and we'll continue on with that next week. And yeah, looking forward to getting back onto projects hopefully next week and putting a good bit of time into that, and yeah, getting that leveled off and getting it as close to turfing as possible. So that's what we've been up to this week, and thanks for watching. Looking forward to next week, where we'll be hosting the Dorset and Wiltshire PGA Pros on Monday. So look forward to setting a golf course up for them, and hopefully we'll get back on some of those project based work and keep driving forward. So thanks for watching, and catch you next week.